Financial advice often presents compound interest as a smooth, effortless climb. We're told that if we save small amounts consistently, the math will eventually work for us. But in the early years, the reality is a grind. You save aggressively, you make sacrifices, and yet your account balance looks almost the same. This friction is rarely explained because several industries benefit from it. Banks profit when you carry debt rather than building capital. Employers maintain more leverage when a worker is one or two paychecks away from a crisis. When the mechanics of wealth scaling remain vague, these entities retain the advantage. Building wealth is not a smooth curve. It is a series of three distinct phase transitions. These occur at the $100,000, $500,000, and $2.5 million marks. Mapping these specific thresholds allows you to see the entire game board. Instead of guessing, you can identify exactly how the physics of your money shifts at each level and adjust your strategy accordingly. The first milestone is $100,000 in liquid investable assets. For an average earner starting from scratch, reaching this requires 7 to 10 years of disciplined saving. This is the puddle phase, where your own labor does the vast majority of the work, while the growth of the investments feels negligible. This chart clarifies the disconnect. If you have $10,000 earning an 8% return, you make $800 in a year, hardly enough to impact your daily life. But at $100,000, that same 8% return adds $8,000 to your balance. For someone earning $70,000, that $8,000 represents more than 11% of their annual salary being generated by their capital rather than their time. This is where the momentum becomes visible on your balance sheet. Reaching this milestone proves you have survived the most difficult stretch of the process. It changes your relationship with your job because your survival is no longer entirely dependent on your next 2 weeks of labor. The second transition occurs at $500,000. Using a standard 4% withdrawal rate, this portfolio can generate $20,000 a year indefinitely. In many markets, that is enough to cover the core costs of housing, food, and utilities. This creates walk-away power. When your basic survival costs are covered by your assets, unemployment is no longer a catastrophic event. You gain the ability to wait for the right opportunity rather than accepting the first job available out of necessity. This leverage changes how you behave in the workplace. It removes the primary tool a toxic employer uses to control staff, the underlying fear of financial ruin. At this stage, portfolio growth overtakes manual savings. Earning 8% on $500,000 produces $40,000 annually, likely more than you can save from your paycheck. With the foundation contributing its own growth, reaching $500,000 happens faster than your initial climb. Reaching the $500,000 mark provides a level of professional security that few people ever experience. It effectively decouples your ability to survive from your daily employment. The third threshold is $2.5 million. Even with a conservative 6% yield, this level of capital generates $150,000 per year in passive income. This creates the inversion point. At this level of wealth, trading an hour of your time for a standard wage becomes mathematically inefficient. Your capital is now significantly more productive than your labor. Reaching this tier is difficult through a salary alone. It usually requires a shift toward ownership, holding equity in a business, investing in real estate, or other scalable assets. Moving into generational wealth demands a structural change in how you build. You must transition from selling finite hours to owning assets that multiply on their own. In 1661, Nicolas Fouquet was one of the wealthiest men in France. He built the most beautiful estate in the country and threw a party so extravagant it made King Louis XIV feel threatened. Fouquet was arrested 3 weeks later and spent the rest of his life in prison. He had reached a high tier of wealth but failed to update his behavior. He treated his money as a way to flaunt status, failing to realize that at his level, the rules of political power and perceived threats were more important than his bank balance. Conversely, the Medici family maintained their status for centuries by constantly adapting. They moved from wool trading to banking to politics, carefully adjusting their strategies as they crossed each financial threshold. Reaching a new threshold without updating your mindset can make the wealth itself a liability. The aggressive saving required for the first milestone can become an obstacle to the strategic risks needed for the third. If you are in the first phase, under $100,000, Focus entirely on the raw savings rate. Your goal is to get through the puddle phase as quickly as possible, ignoring complex investment optimizations for now. Between $100,000 and $500,000, shift your focus to capital protection and career leverage. This is the time to use your financial security to negotiate for better roles or higher equity. If you have surpassed $500,000, prioritize ownership. Direct your energy towards acquiring equity and assets that grow faster than the standard wage cycle. Financial institutions and employers often focus your attention on your salary rather than your net worth. By calculating your exact position relative to these thresholds today, you can stop using a general approach and start executing the specific mathematical strategy for your current tier.